This presentation is going to talk about the two oven bypasses that you will find in an oven on your assessment. Now, an oven is a very simple device. It consists of a square box, a flame, and two things that control the flame. You've got a thermostat to control the heat, and you've got a flame safety device which will switch the gas off if the flame goes out. Now, in order for either of those two valves to know what's going on in the oven, you have to have sensors to talk to them. And in the case of an oven, you have two files. One is the oven temperature file, which controls the thermostat, and the other is the FSD file, which controls the FSD. In reality, this is what the setup looks like, but I'm not here to discuss how a thermostat works or the exact workings of an FSD in this production. I will purely be showing you what the bypasses do. That's the point of this presentation. At the top, where the thermostat is, when the oven is switched off, the thermostat valve is sitting before any gas can reach the thermostat bypass. So when the oven is off, the gas all sits behind the thermostat valve. The gas does not have access to the thermostat bypass. When you turn the dial on, the thermostat valve is pushed past the entrance to the bypass. And like I've said, this isn't exactly how a thermostat valve works, but for this presentation, this will show you how the bypass works. So the thermostat valve is passed beyond the entrance to the thermostat bypass, and this allows gas all the way straight through the thermostat down the back of the oven, where it arrives at the FSD. Notice the thermostat valve is wide open, allowing gas straight through. Let's have a closer look at that. With the dial turned, it's pushed the valve past the bypass. The gas isn't going to go down the bypass and up because it's got a far easier route, which is straight through the thermostat itself. So at present, there is no need for the bypass. And as you'll find out, this is because at the moment, the oven file, or the thermostat file, is cold. So the gas goes straight through the thermostat into the flame safety device, the FSD. Because you've just turned the dial, the FSD file is cold, so the FSD valve is closed. When the FSD file is cold, because there's no flame, then the FSD will be closed. If we left it like that, then no gas would get to the burner and you'd never be able to light the oven. So what they do is they drill a small hole in the FSD valve itself. It's a very small hole and it allows a small amount of gas to get into the burner. So if we have a closer look at that, the FSD valve is closed because the file is cold. A small amount of gas goes through the bypass drilling, that's called the FSD bypass, and it allows low pressure gas up to the burner. The only gas it's getting is being restricted by the FSD bypass hole, because at the moment at the top of the oven the thermostat is wide open. So as we can see from here, the gas comes down the mains straight through the thermostat. Has nothing to do with the thermostat bypass at all. It goes straight through the thermostat, down the gas tubes, into the FSD, through the small FSD bypass, and that allows a small amount of gas to enter the burner. When that's lit, that gives us what we call the low rate, and that's the small flame you see when you light an oven. Now that small flame is enough to heat the FSD file. Once that FSD file is hot, it opens the FSD completely. So the FSD valve is now open because the FSD file is hot. This allows unrestricted gas straight to the burner and gives us a large flame. So you'll know yourself, when you start an oven, it starts on small flame, the low rate, and then after about 5 or 10 seconds it suddenly jumps up to a high flame. That's because the small flame is controlled by the FSD bypass, and when the file is warm, the FSD opens, allows full pressure gas through, and it jumps to the high flame. Now with the high flame on in the oven, that allows the oven file or the thermostat file to get warm, because now with the high flame it's heating the inside of the oven. It's important to know that after the FSD opens, when the small flame or the low rate first jumps up to its high rate, the FSD plays no further part in the control of the oven at all. All control over the power of the flame is passed over to the thermostat. So once the FSD is open, it will not take any more part in the proceedings unless the flame goes out. If the flame goes out, the file will cool, it will close its valve. But as far as we're concerned, in a normal working oven, as soon as it goes to high rate, the FSD has nothing more to do with the oven at all. So now we're in a situation where we've got a high flame. The oven thermostat has now reached temperature. My apologies, the oven file, or the thermostat file, has now reached the temperature that you asked it to reach when you dialed your numbers into the oven. So what's happening inside the thermostat? Well, when the file reaches the heat that you've asked for, the thermostat closes. It says, I'm hot enough now, I'm going to close the gas. But again, if it just closed, then the flame would go out because no gas would be able to get down the pipe to the burner. So they have built into them a small bypass, just like the bypass with the FSD, which allows a small amount of gas to go round the closed thermostat valve and keep the flame on the burner alive, but at a very low rate. This is called the bypass rate, because what's controlling it, or what's controlling the pressure of the gas going to the burner, is this bypass within the thermostat. So now you've got a situation where the oven file has reached the temperature you've asked for it. The gas can't go straight down the pipes anymore because the thermostat has closed, because the oven is now hot enough. But the gas goes through the bypass on the thermostat and at low rate goes down and into the burner at the bottom of the oven, and that results in a lower flame, which, because it's being controlled by the thermostat bypass, is called the bypass rate. When the oven goes into this state, obviously it hasn't got as much heat in it and it starts to cool down. When it cools down, the oven thermostat file also cools down. And when the file cools down, it opens the thermostat because it realizes the oven's starting to get cold. It opens the thermostat, allowing the gas straight through again, which then makes the flame go back up to the high rate. And this cycle is repeated over and over again. You get a high flame, a low flame, a high flame, a low flame, keeping the temperature to within the limits that you've set by dialing regulo 5, regulo 6, regulo 7, whatever it is you've dialed. So there you go. As soon as the file gets warm again, the thermostat closes, the gas has to go round the bypass, therefore the flame shrinks. When the flame shrinks, the file cools down, the thermostat opens, allows full pressure gas through, and that's the way your oven keeps a constant temperature. So to summarize everything, the thermostat bypass is used every time the oven file reaches temperature. So every time it reaches temperature, the thermostat closes and the gas has to go round the thermostat bypass. The FSD bypass is only ever used to start the oven. Once the oven has started and the FSD file reaches temperature, it is never used again. I hope that's made things plain for you. If you like my content, please like and subscribe, and with any luck I'll be making more of these videos helping you out shortly. Thank you for listening.